And welcome back to the XL Sports College Football Drive at 5, brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Coming to you live from the David Venable Studios in downtown Hawkinsville. In the studio with me, we got Will and Ken on the boards. Interesting things we have to discuss today. We're going to discuss a little bit of, I guess, conference realignment, some maybe some way too early top 12 playoff predictions, I guess you could say. And I'll let you take over. You kind of gave me some of the stuff you want to talk about, so I'm going to let you take this over and
Let's do it.
Roll with it.
Yeah, so this episode we're going to do a little bit of looking back and then a little bit of looking forward. Wanted to kind of look back on the season, kind of see who was a surprise, who surprised us, who played well, and who surprised us, I guess, by playing poorly. So the sort of the disappointments of the year. Starting off with, we'll start off with on a good note. We'll start off with surprises, the good things. So some of the teams really that surprised me. SMU, they played really well. Excuse me. Rhett Lashley is a great coach. So it shouldn't be surprising they did so well, but it kind of was. To me, they did as well as they did because they beat out Tulane for the conference. That was good for them. Last year, SMU didn't do so well. I think they were 7-6, something like that. But Tanner Mordecai was lighting it up, and I thought that was like, hey, Tanner Mordecai's great, good for him. But this year, I know he got hurt, but Tanner Mordecai didn't play nearly as well. It was a new system. Right. New system he was at too in Wisconsin. But I think you got to give Rhett Lashley a lot of credit because Preston Stone stepped in there and they didn't miss a beat. They actually did much better. Again, winning the conference. So shout out SMU and Rhett Lashley. Good job this year.
SMU, you commented on them beating Tulane, and we talked about this last year. Tulane, this is a Tulane team who won the Cotton Bowl the year before.
Yep.
And brought back a very, I think, probably, if not the most productive returning production in the country, definitely in the top 10.
It was
production in the country.
They returned a lot of that same team for sure.
Yep.
One of my teams I was pulling for this year, Memphis, they played pretty well. And one of the teams I was pulling against, USF, they played surprisingly well, including winning their bowl game. They didn't just win it; they embarrassed a Power 5 team.
Let me look this up. I think didn't they go 1-11
last year? Yeah.
So the two teams went 1-11, them and Northwestern, which is another team I think you're probably going to talk about.
Yep.
Both went to I think did Northwestern go to a bowl game this year?
They sure did. They won it. They beat Utah.
So both those 1-11 teams come back and won their bowl games. That is impressive. Very impressive.
Another team that really took me by surprise was NC State. I mean, especially considering how they started their season. They started looking like they might win 3 games all year, and I wasn't surprised at that. I anticipated them to play poorly because I just didn't believe in Brennan Armstrong at all, and it turned out, hey, he's not very good, but they overcame that, and they played well. I think they finished on something like a 7-game win streak, 6-7. But a great finish for NC State.
I had them as one of my teams on our Pick'em team the year before, and them losing Devin Leary, I thought was going to be terrible for them. I thought that Devin Leary was going to be a really good addition for, I think, Kentucky's where he went, right?
Yep.
And it turns out, I guess it was more the coaching staff than it was the player because I don't think Devin Leary did as good as I thought he would have, and NC State did far better than I thought they would as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I had, spoiler alert, jumping ahead, I had Devin Leary as one of the people who disappointed me a little bit this year.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't just Devin Leary leaving. It was the fact that you were replacing Devin Leary with Brennan Armstrong, a guy who I did not think would play very well, and surprise, he didn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They finished on a 5-game win streak and won 6 of their last 7. So
yeah, that's
a
really
pretty good finish, especially after starting, I think, well, they started 3-2, so not terrible, but obviously not good.
Right.
A little bit of shout out to Virginia Tech, especially how they finished that bowl game. That was impressive to me. That quarterback they got there, he showed me some things in that bowl game that I think it's Kyron. Yes, Kyron Drones. He can make a splash next year for sure. Oklahoma State. Shout out Gundy.
Except the UCF game.
Except for the UCF
I
game.
just don't get that, man.
Well,
45-3 or something. It was they got
something wild like that.
demolished by UCF.
They were another team that I didn't expect to do much this year just because of the amount of production they were losing. But, Gundy figured it out, and what he figured out was, hey, hand Ollie Gordon the ball and we can win some games. Yeah, except for when you play UCF on the road and lose 45-3.
So I think we go back and look at the archives on this, and I believe that I predicted Oklahoma State to play for their conference championship.
You may have. I'm not sure about that one.
They got beat by UCF. I thought, oh my goodness, this is
Yeah, I thought
this
it was
is terrible. And then they came back and did what they did. But go ahead.
Also got to give a shout out to West Virginia. When you go from Neil Brown about to lose his job to going 9-4, that's a good season for them as well. And hey, sneaky, like I said, we were talking about this a little earlier. The Big 12 is going to be one of the most difficult conferences next year. They're going to be one of the most difficult conferences to predict a winner for, in my eyes. I think it's wide open. Keep an eye on West Virginia. I won't predict it right now, but they could make some noise, especially if they build off that momentum they had last year. Keep an eye on them.
Could they be a next time of the MAC as far as predictability goes? Yeah.
I don't know about that unpredictable because I think the MAC. I think all the ADs come together and are like, okay, we have to beat each other as much as possible. I think they have a meeting. Talk about games being scripted. I think the MAC games are scripted just to make it as interesting as possible. And then when the snow happens, I think they just throw the scripts out because snow is so unpredictable. They're just like, hey, we'll see what happens.
I tell you what, I love watching the MAC games. I love keeping up with the MAC because you just don't know, man.
I tell you what,
it's good football.
If you like watching college football but don't want to wait until Saturday, turn it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night. Catch you some action. It's entertaining for the most part. There's a few games that are blowouts, but that is one of the conferences with the most parity I've seen in my entire life. So
a lot of fun watching.
Shout out to the MAC. Whoop, there you go. Okay, another team that, man, if you didn't mention them as far as a surprise, you're doing a disservice, man. Northwestern.
Not only they go 1-11, they lost 11 consecutive games.
They won 0 games in the continental U.S. last year.
That's correct.
Yes. They beat a coach who got fired, and that was it. Man, like I said, they went 1-11, lost 11 in a row, and then right before the season started, their head coach got fired for the hazing scandal.
That's right. That's right. Man, that was a kind of a black eye on that program too. And you thought, wow, man, you just come off a 1-11 season, you're losing all this negative publicity going on. I think they had a lot of people leave the program. So, yeah, hats off to them for what they did this year. And won their bowl game, went 7-6. Very good.
Yep. Obviously not as serious, but I saw the potential of something happening to them, like what happened to Penn State after the whole crazy scandal they had going on. Again, not as bad, not as serious.
Yeah.
Again, still not great, but I had that kind of feeling like, oh boy, they just went 1-11. They're dealing with this, and then David Ron steps in there and pulls them to a 7-5 record in the regular season. Think about it this way: they were a field goal and 10 seconds away on Wrigley Field in a windy November game away from playing Michigan for the conference championship. That is how well he did.
Yep.
1 year removed from going 1-11.
It kind of reminds me too, also of Maryland when Maryland went through that stuff with the coach that left for all the abuse that he was accused of.
Yep.
So and Mike Locksley coming in there and kind of did what Bill O'Brien did at Penn State. Bill O'Brien just pretty much rescued Penn State when he came through all that stuff, and then James Franklin has even carried that to the next level. So
absolutely, again, to do all that and then to go to a bowl game and beat Utah, even Utah minus some of their players, that's a great year for Northwestern. Got to give a shout out to New Mexico State. They go from, I believe, 2 years ago, 2021. I think they were 2-10. This year they went 10-5, and they played for a conference championship.
And their coach is a phenomenal coach, I think. Jerry Kill's his name.
Yep.
And I tell you what, that guy, he's kind of old school, throwback, hard nosed. I think he's had some health problems he's overcome over the years. And you're right, and that's one of the teams I picked. We have our pick-up thing, and I picked them, and then they started the season lost a couple games at the beginning of the season, and I dropped them. I wish I wouldn't have, but yeah, they were. I think they were a good surprise this year.
Absolutely, especially for a team that played 13 regular season games. Yes, they had no bye week because they played week 0, and they had no bye week, so it's 13 games.
They'll play anybody, anywhere, don't matter.
Great job by Jerry Kill there. Jacksonville State, give them a quick shout out to first year up from FCS. They went 9-4. They almost had a chance to compete for their conference championship.
And they went to a bowl game.
Yep, same conference as New Mexico State there, so they almost had a shot. UNLV, Barry Odom, looking good there. I think they started off probably close to 6-0, something like that. I don't have it right offhand, but they finished 9-5. They had a really good season.
He's a good coach. I'm sorry, he is a good coach.
I think he's proven that this year with UNLV. He's got to keep it up, but I think it was a great year for him. The mighty Wyoming Cowboys. Again, just giving a little sneak peek behind the scenes in our pick'em thing. One of our members picked Wyoming. I kind of laughed at them, and turns out they finished 9-4. So not a terrible pick. They played pretty well.
Yep, absolutely.
This is going to sound weird as a surprise, but especially considering all the crap that I gave them and then all the crap I got. Colorado winning 4 games. That was a big surprise. I got to say hats off. Again, I know it was a losing record, and by most people's standards, not a good season. But for Colorado, that was a fantastic year they had. And they're pulling in a lot of players in the portal.
Yeah.
Kind of said it last week. I would not be shocked if they can make a run at the Big 12 next year. So,
they really were. If you go back and look at some of those losses they had, they really were just a few plays away from being bowl eligible.
I mean, they should not have lost that Stanford game. So that's one game right there that they just gave away. And they were in a few of those until the very end. But
I think USC game comes to mind.
Oh yeah. That was
in that USC game.
That was one of the surprising ones.
Yeah,
if they can just get a better defense and shore up that offensive line and have something that resembles a run game, they could be dangerous next year.
Exactly.
The mighty Missouri Tigers, man. Drink is a fantastic head coach.
Barry Odom's old school. Yeah,
he is building a monster out there in Mizzou. Sorry, all you Vols fans out there, to what is now the old defunct SEC East. I think going forward, they are one of the, behind Georgia, one of the best SEC East teams. Again, doing away with divisions this year, but former SEC East teams, I think they are one of the most impressive ones moving forward. Right. Brady Cook, he's a good quarterback. He's not losing any of his weapons. Luther Burden's coming back. That's a huge for them. They're getting some good names, good players, good talent in the portal. Ole Miss is another one. I was down on them all year, and they proved me wrong time and time again, including that big win against Penn State. So that's good for them. And then just a couple more. Boise State, want to give them a shout out too. They weren't outstanding by any means, but they did go through a lull of barely having a winning record, then going 500 and firing their head coach, and then finishing the season on a tear. So shout out to them. And again, going into next year with some momentum, picking up Malachi Nelson in the portal, that's huge. Retaining Ashton, can never say his last name right, Jonty. Keeping him and pairing him with Malachi Nelson, that's going to be huge for them next year, especially considering the expanded playoff and how a group of 5 team is going to make it, at least one for sure. And then 3 teams that made the playoff. Michigan going 15-0. That was sort of a surprise for me. I'm not shocked that they won it all because I thought they were going to be one of the 2 best teams in the country going into it. But the fact that they were able to weather the storm with all the outside stuff going on, because there was a lot of off-field drama this year for Michigan, and those players, regardless of what the coaching staff of the program did, those players, they stuck it out and they won the whole thing. They did a great job. Texas, got to give them a shout out making the playoff. They won their conference, they made the playoff, but they still lost to Oklahoma. So they had a good year, I guess by some measurements, but I guess as a Texas fan, if you don't win the whole thing and you lose to Oklahoma, is it a great year? So that's up for you guys to decide.
I still think Texas is back. I'll even say that. And I picked them. You guys know I picked them and Michigan both in our pick 'em. So I picked half the playoff. And just so you guys know, my son Chaz won our college pick 'em this year. So how he did that when I went back and added everything up, I have no idea. I had 2 teams that made the playoff, and I still didn't win the thing. I missed by 3 points, but it is what it is. Congratulations to him. We're going to take us a little break here in just a minute, but I do want to throw this out there. You can listen to us live on the xlsportsnetwork.net and hit listen live on there. You can also go to the YouTube channel. That's the XL Sports Network on YouTube. Again, XL Sports Network. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and share a comment. And you know what? You put a comment on there, we may even put it on the air. Welcome back to the XL Sports Network, coming to you live from downtown Hawkinsville and Dave Venable Studios. Brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Listen to the College Sports, XL Sports Network College Drive at 5. I was told by somebody that I need to pep it up, old man. So I'm going to pep it up a little bit, and we're going to jump right back into what we're doing here.
Man.
And here we go. Will, you want to talk some more surprises from the season? What do you got, Will?
I'm talking college football. I'm always happy. So again, this is going to come as a surprise, especially after where everyone knows my allegiances lie. But I got to give a shout out to Alabama too. I kind of touched on it last week with giving Nick Saban his flowers. This Alabama team, they had some talent for sure, but I think it's been the least talented offense they've had in a long time. And the fact that Nick Saban was able to take this team to capitalize their strengths and to take this team to the college football playoff and come within an overtime away from making the national championship. I think it was a great season for Alabama too. It's sad that he's gone, but a great season for the Crimson Tide, especially that went over Georgia in Atlanta, and like I said, being very close to beating Michigan. Great season for the Tide.
I'll tell you this: if they would have pulled that game out, I think they would have won the whole thing.
I agree. I think they probably would have beaten Washington. Washington was my team. I was with them all year, but I think Alabama's defense definitely would have been good enough to mimic some of the things, at least, that that Michigan's defense did to Washington.
I know we talked about it last week, but if you go back and look at Alabama's 2 losses this year, and both of them had the same similarities with putting pressure on Milroe. And, unfortunately, the game plan for Georgia wasn't that. They said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to throw it on us. And we're just going to stop the run, and they just sat back there and let him, pick them apart. And Texas and Michigan both, man, they get after that guy and put pressure on him, and that was the difference. So, hey, man, it is what it is, and I think this season was still a great season. My team didn't win the whole thing. I still think that they were probably the best team in the country, but. Man, rose-colored glasses are fun to wear every once in a while. But congratulations to Michigan and the Wolverine country for getting it done this year. What you got?
Already talked about SMU and Rhett Lashley, so fantastic job of Rhett Lashley. I want to talk about Brent Key, too. It's tough as a Georgia fan to recognize when Georgia Tech does something well. But Georgia Tech, got to give Brent Key some credit. I don't want to give credit to the whole team necessarily, more the coach, because I think it was things he did well as opposed to things the team did well, because that defense was atrocious. Haynes King played well, but I think a lot of it was scheme and putting players in a position to make plays. And if they can fix that defense up some, and again, I got to give them credit, because if you told me before this season that Georgia Tech was going to finish ranked higher in the conference than Clemson, I thought you were crazy, but that's how it finished out. So again, got to give Brent Key some credit there. Fantastic job by him.
I think that Mario Cristobal handed Brent Key an early Christmas present in Coral Gables.
Mario Cristobal.
You go back and look at that. I've watched the replay on that several times, and it's just insane. Man, you snap the ball and you fall on the ground and you win.
I think if you punt the ball right there, you still win.
Yeah, anything you do, but don't fumble the ball, man. I couldn't believe it, but it is what it is, and. I would say Mario Cristobal may have learned his lesson, but I don't think he did, because that's the second time that's happened to him. My dad used to always tell me a hard head makes a soft rear end. So, anyway, maybe he said it a little differently, but that's what he said. What you got?
And then Marcus Freeman, I want to give him some credit too. I think the flashpoint in his very young tenure as the Notre Dame head coach was that Stanford game 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah,
2021. At that point, I think they were They had lost their first two, then they won three, and then they lost one to Stanford, and then they were 3-3 with losses to Stanford and Marshall, if I'm not mistaken. And then after that, during that season, Notre Dame played well, and then last year they played pretty well too. I know they had a couple of disappointing losses, Ohio State, and then dropping the ball against Louisville. But when they played that Louisville game, they were in the middle of a pretty brutal schedule. But all things considered, I think Marcus Freeman did a really good job last year because the people were kind of questioning, hey, can he do this? Can he coach this team? And I think he's proven he can. And I tell you what, he's done a really good job in the portal this year too. Everybody knows I'm pretty high on Riley Leonard.
Yep.
I think they're bringing in some guys, and Notre Dame, obviously they're not going to be a top 4 seed next year when it comes to the playoff, but they can definitely make it. They're going to be in the mix, I believe, for sure.
So, and you mentioned Riley Leonard. I was going to talk to you about him. If you didn't mention, but is it conceivable that that's an upgrade over Sam Hartman?
It depends on what kind of scheme you're wanting to go for.
I mean, he's not going to be a drop back quarterback. You know that.
No, of course not.
Riley Leonard's going to, I mean, you get him out there and let him open the field up with his legs on. I think he's dynamic, man. He may be one of the best, the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country.
Hey, he was a Heisman dark horse for me last year.
When you told me that early season, I was like, what are you? You're just picking stuff out here, but man, God, the first half of the season, man, he lit it up, and I'm like, this guy was getting some. I mean, he's getting some attention. He's getting my attention anyway.
Yeah,
unfortunately, went down. But.
Yeah, definitely not a pure passing threat. But he's definitely a dual threat guy. And again, that injury against Notre Dame didn't help him very much. But just having the guts and the grit to finish that game out the way he did, and massive respect to Sam Hartman again for going and showing him some love for the game. That was awesome. And then just going to a coach that I think is one of the most underrated coaches in college football, a guy who I don't know if anybody else considers success, but I do. I think Matt Campbell has done a great job at Iowa State.
100%.
He does a good job in winning games he shouldn't win. This year they went 7-6, I believe. But I mean, to go 7-6 with that roster he has, I mean, I can't name one person on that roster right now. I just can't. I think Deckers may have been their quarterback. That may be 2 years old, though. I'm not sure. I don't think they had anybody of note on that team, and he still was, I believe if they had beaten Texas and everything else stayed the same, they would have played for the conference championship game, which is pretty amazing.
So, 2 words for you. Brock Purdy. The guy's getting ready to play the Super Bowl and was developed by Matt Campbell. So, the guy's doing something right. You're right about that, and I'm telling you, I was talking to a couple this past week, that were from Iowa, and I told them about some of the stuff that we've done, and the Michigan Ohio State game, and in fact, you and I want to go watch a Wisconsin game, and I said, man, I want to go to Iowa and watch a game one of these days, but I want to go to watch and aim to watch Iowa State. I'd like to go to the Iowa State game, and they were like, oh yeah, we're Iowa State fans, and we talked about that, Matt Campbell and everything. Man, he is a great coach, and you're right. Him still being at Iowa State is kind of blows me away because I think that he's kind of like Luke Fickell. He's got the ability to get paid a lot of money somewhere else.
Yeah, the way he coaches, I mean, I don't hand out praise lightly. The way he coaches kind of reminds me of Kyle Whittingham, doing more with less. Obviously, I'm not saying he's as good as Kyle Whittingham because Kyle Whittingham, I think, is one of the best coaches in the league. But
he's also been doing it for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Over a long period of time. So,
I will be shocked if Matt Campbell doesn't get a job at a bigger program sometime in the near future.
If he wants it. I mean, he may not even want it.
He may want to say that. You're right about that.
Because, I mean, you think about it, where he is right now, there's not as much pressure on him right now.
There's no pressure.
Versus going to, let's just say the Texas job came open or something, man. That's where you just like, well, I mean, Kalen DeBar or whatever his name is, went to Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you and I talked about this before. He was on the hot seat when he signed that contract.
Before that ink dried, yes, he was on the hot seat. For sure.
I mean, you go to a place like Auburn, I mean, Hugh Freeze, I mean, any of those guys are going to be on the hot seat as soon as they take over.
For sure.
The pressure is on. And in a place like Iowa State, maybe don't get paid as much, but the expectations aren't so high that you can't ever meet those. So,
but hey, great people, they say pressure's a privilege, so we'll see how he does. Talking about players that are surprises, I mean, obviously, Jayden Daniels. I remember the day I saw that video of him leaving Arizona State and all the players trashing his locker, stealing his stuff. Yep. I felt so bad for the kid. But then to turn around, a year or two later and come win the Heisman, that is a fantastic job by Jaden Daniels. Nothing but respect and love for him there.
Yeah.
I did not see this coming, but I will say I did think he was an athlete when I saw him play there, because one of my friends at my job I used to work at, he was getting an online degree at Arizona State, so I took a peek at the roster and what it looked like. I saw Jaden Daniels, and again, I didn't see this coming, but I saw he was an athlete, so I'm glad I think he realized his full potential, and I don't think he could have asked for anything more out of his final season of college football. I think a great year for Dylan Gabriel. I'm excited to see what he can do at Oregon. I think he's going to make them a problem for everybody next year. Again, if you're talking surprises and you don't mention the name Cody Schrader, what are you doing? That guy, he's a feel-good story if you ever want to hear one. He did a great job this year. Well-deserved honors that he got, and I'm just so happy for him, and I hope he gets a good draft position coming up in the draft.
Anybody outside the state of Missouri says they saw that coming, they're liars. Because that guy, he came to Missouri without even being on a scholarship. He came as a walk-on. And, wow, like you said, man, what a great story. I love watching him compete, love watching him run the ball. And, he, like you said, a great feel-good story. I think that he's going to be a great NFL football player. Just a great ball player, a great young man. Again, you're listening to the XL Sports Network College Drive at 5. Brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Go to the YouTube channel and look for XL Sports Network. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and share a comment. We'd love to be able to read your comments on the air. And we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in 3 minutes. Welcome back to the XL Sports Network College Football Drive at 5. Brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Coming to you live from the David Noble Studios. My name is Chuck Ferguson. I'm joined in the studio by Will Nobles, my partner. And on the board, we have Ken Parks. And we're going to talk a little bit of college football and want to talk a little bit more about, we were just talking about the surprises, good surprises of the year. And both teams, coaches, some of the players that were surprises. I guess if I had my favorite pick out of the ones we talked about, of course, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman, but I think Cody Schrader probably my favorite of those ones we discussed. But I think, Will, you want to go in and talk a little bit about some of the disappointments that we had?
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Thankfully, had less disappointments than surprises. Kind of taking a glass half full approach to all of this. Got to give one more shout out to Ollie Gordon. I was kind of giving him a lot of crap because he was getting comparisons to Barry Sanders, but I mean, again, to finish that season how he did and have the highs he had. Great finish to the season for Ollie Gordon, and another quick shout out to Noah Fafita, probably unknown name there, quarterback at Arizona. I'm excited to see what he can do with the new head coach next year, and he's his top weapon staying too. So that's exciting for Arizona joining the Big 12. Disappointments. I got to start with my first team that I picked in our pick.
Hold on, don't say it.
Don't
say it. You haven't told me this.
I have not told you.
Do they wear orange?
They do wear orange.
Do they have tiger paws on the side?
They sure do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I was an honorary Clemson fan this year, having picked them for our little contest we had going on. And man, gosh, I feel you guys' pain. It was up and down. At times, felt more down than up. 9-4 did not feel like 9-4.
No, it didn't.
Man, it felt like a 6-6 season, but.
I mean, we were talking about them. Man, are they going to make a bowl game?
At one point, it was looking very iffy, dull for them. Very bleak outlook for Clemson. But again, they finished strong. They pulled it out. I think it was all because of Tyler from Spartanburg. He gave them that shot in the arm they needed. But the most disappointing thing to me was when I saw them or heard that they hired Garrett Riley. I was like, man, that offense is going to light people on fire. They're going to be scoring 60 points a game. They're going to look good. They didn't do that. I was like, Cade Klubnik's going to take a step forward with Garrett Riley, the quarterback whisperer. He's going to be a Heisman contender. Didn't do that. And the team as a whole, at no point did they put together a full game where I was like, that's a top 10 team in the country. At no point. I think their best game was probably their loss to Florida State.
Yeah.
And then behind
it was a 3-point game, right? And they had a chance to win that game at the end.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up being a 7-point win for Florida State, but they had that game in hand. if not for that sack, force, fumble, scoop and score, I think Clemson wins that game because they had all the momentum and they were just driving. But
They had the game in there, and I mean the game was they had the game.
they did.
I mean it wasn't the Georgia State Miami
No, yeah.
game, but they had the game. I mean they had that game won, and they just snatched defeat right out of the jaws of victory.
They sure did. And then again, the fact that they had the field goal kicker situation, the fact that it came down to that and they were not as prepared as they should have been.
Right.
Again, just a disappointing season for a team that I expected to make the playoff. I don't know if it's disappointing for anybody else, but I was disappointed with TCU this year. I don't know how you can go from making the national championship to not even making a bowl game. I mean, I know they lost a lot of talent and a lot of coaches, but I think 5-7 was really bleak for them. I did not expect them to repeat as conference champions. I thought they'd get to 8 wins, though, maybe. But they didn't. They were very disappointing, especially after that loss to Colorado. That set the tone for the whole season, really. And anybody who wants to say I told you so, feel free, go for it.
Yeah.
But
I'm not gonna do that.
I will agree. I said it last year. I think they had one of the most fortunate runs to a national championship I've ever seen. I've never seen a team get that lucky in that many close games.
So
but they did, and they made it out. And I think this year that luck just ran dry.
You stole that right out of my mouth there. Even the great Alabama, championships, and some of you Alabama fans may want to argue with me, and you can all you want to, but if you go back and look, even that 2020 season Alabama had that they say that could have been one of the best teams ever. Hard to argue that one way or the other because of the COVID season, but I'm telling you, every single championship, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's high school football, whether it's NBA finals, every championship, the winner of that championship got lucky somewhere down the road. And TCU didn't just get lucky down the road; they got lucky almost every single week they played.
For about 7 weeks in a row, I was like, "Man, they got lucky."
I mean, you go back and look at that 22 season, and they had how many games did they have that were one-score games?
Oh, it was
maybe all of them.
I think it was like 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, and they were pulling stuff out like, for example, I think it was what game was it?
The field goal kick.
The field goal kick.
Baylor.
That's right. It was the Baylor game. And if you think about the luck, here's the luck. All right, they were out of timeouts. They run their field goal team out there. Now, when you substitute, normally the referee comes over and holds the ball so the defense have a chance to substitute. They didn't do that. The time would have expired in that game had they done what the rules said they were supposed to do. Hey, I'm just telling you, it's just. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you're 4th down and 9, and you throw the ball out in the flats, and the ball hits the ground, and the guy calls it a catch, and then nobody challenges it, or somebody blocks a punt inside the 5-yard line, and they call him offsides, and they come back later on down the road and go, well, we missed that call. I mean, that happens. Luck. I'm not just saying, but we've seen it. Too many times we've seen it.
That sounds a little bit like sour grapes to me. But
but it's still luck. This is what my point is. Still luck. It is sour grapes, and they taste horrible. But TCU had a lot of luck that year. And hey, listen, I love Sonny Dykes is a great coach, and I like him a lot. I liked it when he was at SMU. But man, they had they came off of 5-7 season the year before, or whatever it was with the first year coach, and they go to the national championship game. So. But you're right. I think that most people would have probably had them winning at least 7 or 8 games or get bowl eligible. But 5-7,
yeah,
I can't say that I thought they would be that bad, but I knew they were not good because they lost a lot. They lost a lot of talent, and I knew that they were not going to get that lucky again like they did. Because the schedule also set up for them too. A lot of those games they played at home. So.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
just blowing through a few SEC teams real quick. Just me personally, these are my disappointments. I was disappointed in Arkansas how they played. I expected more from them and more from Sam Pittman. I think he's got one more year. If he don't get it right, I think he's gone.
a team that almost won in Tuscaloosa, by the way.
I think Alabama almost lost. Those two things are very different.
Well, yeah, you're right.
South Carolina was disappointing to me,
Yes,
especially after what they showed in that Georgia game where they were giving Georgia the business for the better part of the first half. and then to just completely lay an egg the rest of the season and almost lose to Jacksonville State. Yes, Jacksonville State. Yes.
The Battle of the Gamecocks.
And then for me, Texas A&M, they showed flashes at times. I'm not sure that those players didn't play poorly on purpose to get Jimbo fired, and if you did, great job. I think that was an excellent decision. But again, I think A&M was a little disappointing. And just me personally, again, I'm a Green Bay fan, and by extension, I guess a Wisconsin Badgers fan. They were just a touch disappointing this year. I attribute some of that to injury though, because their offense was beaten and banged up for much of the season, but I expect more from them next year. Even though it's going to be in the expanded Big Ten, I expect more from them next year. And finishing with another Big Ten team, man, I'm giving Penn State the Texas treatment. Don't talk to me until you've done something. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of buying the hype every year. I'm done. James Franklin, I love you. Great coach. Man, I love the blue and the white. I want to go to a whiteout one day. It seems like it's going to be a great atmosphere. Penn State, don't talk to me until you've done something.
Okay.
You've consistently been the third best team in your own division, and now you've got teams joining the conference. I think Oregon jumps in, and they're probably a conference champion betting favorite ahead of you already. Penn State, don't talk to me until you've done something. So that team's disappointing. Those were my teams that disappointed this year.
Could they go from being the third best team in their division, well, the third best team in the conference, to being 5, maybe 4, 5, 6?
It's possible. It depends on how the teams play, but it's definitely possible.
I mean, hey, listen, if you ask me right now, who I wish to see win the Big 12, the Big 10, I would probably say Penn State, because like you, I like James Franklin. I met him. I think he's a great coach. I like the guy. He's a good dude, very competitive. But I'm with you. I think until you do something, man, it's time to kind of just be quiet. You know, I was never a Penn State fan growing up ever. I didn't like Joe Pa, to be honest with you. I just didn't like him. I do like the simpleness of their everything that the simple their uniforms and all that. But I think after they went through the Sandusky thing and how they reacted to that, and how Bill O'Brien and James Franklin will be able to build that program back, I became a fan of theirs. Just because it wasn't their fault that they had a monster on their staff, but I'm with you though. You got to do something until you at least make the playoff. You just I'm not going to really respect a whole lot of things that you do. So anyway, what else you got? Anything on the disappointing side?
Yeah, just real quick, blow through some players. I gave this guy a lot of guff all season, and I think that's just because I hold him to a higher standard than everyone else did. Drake May did not have a good year.
Yeah.
I don't know why people are considering him for the number 1 pick overall. I guess raw talent maybe, but he has not been impressive to me since that Oregon game they played in the bowl game last year. Again, I think it's because I hold him to a higher standard, but he was disappointing to me this year. Already talked about Cade Klubnik, disappointing. Devin Leary, talked about him a little earlier. He was disappointing so far, or this season to me. For me, again, I hold people to a high standard. So Quinshawn Judkins, he did not play poorly, but he played worse than he did his freshman year.
Start off playing poorly. First 5 or 6 games, you didn't know anything about it.
He did. But as a whole on the season, he did not play poorly, but I think he did play worse than he did his freshman year. So again, I wanted him to play better, and I think he needs to play better for Ohio State to do some damage next year.
I think he will, and there may have been something going on with that, so I'm not sure. We're going to take another break and come back for our final segment, and we'll get into our extremely way too early pre-spring top 12 prediction from the XL Sports Network. You are listening to the XL Sports Network College Drive at 5, brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Again, you can check us out on the YouTube channel, the XL Sports Network on the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, make a comment, and share your comments with us. You can also listen to us live at the xlsportsnetwork.net. And we're going to be back in 3 minutes. Welcome back to the XL College Football Drive at 5, brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. We're going to go into our final segment of the day. We will try to do this next week. I do have some doctor's appointments I have to take my dad to next week, so I'm going to try to get that done and get back by the time we start the show the following week. We may try that show as a remote. Again, if we don't get on the air, we apologize. But sometimes life has to some other priorities. So, Will, let's talk about the way early pre-spring. Actually, you know what? We have another 6 days until National Signing Day.
Yep, next Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday, National Signing Day. So we're even prior to the National Signing Day, which is going to be, it's going to be something in itself. Most of the guys have been signed already anyway in the early signing period. But we're going to talk about the top 12, our predictions, the XO Sport Network predictions for the year coming up, 2024. Will, this is yours, brother. You go right ahead, and I'll follow along with you.
All right, and I never want people to think that I'm too biased. I know I have a bias. I know I do. Everyone does. If they say they don't, they're lying to you. Just to be fair, we're talking about disappointments. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, disappointing. Mikael Williams, disappointing this past season. I had them on my paper right there, along with Harold Perkins. I don't know if that was he didn't play well or they didn't use him right, but he was disappointing this year.
No doubt.
And again, one last guy I wanted to throw in there real quick for a coach. Obviously, I think the likes of Lincoln Riley, we can all see that was disappointing. For my fellow, it feels weird relating to them like this, my fellow SEC fans, I guess, Billy Napier, as someone who's rooting for him to actively fail, he's been disappointing. I think when he came in, there was a lot of hype about, he's a great coach, he's a great recruiter. I think you can argue that they have not gone anywhere and they may have gotten worse, especially with these allegations coming out about recruiting violations and stuff. Again, that may be just the NCAA trying to flex their muscles and prove they're important, which they're not. But I do want to say that not that I feel for you Florida fans, but I understand that, yes, he has been a disappointment, and I don't know if there's a hotter seat in the entire country than Billy Napier to come into this season.
Somebody made a comment to me, somebody who's close to me. I really appreciate them, and I appreciate their friendship, and I really respect what they say. And I've been on here talking about the Gators and calling them bad names and swamp lizards and stuff like that. So I apologize to my Florida fans that are listening to us. So I try not to pick on him a whole lot anymore because he's right. My friend's right. You want people to listen to you, and if you're constantly bashing them, then they're not going to listen to you. I get it. And I'm with you, Will. Florida, they are our arch rival as Georgia fans. But man, I like Billy Napier. I really do. I liked him when he was at Louisiana, and I was afraid that he was going to get the job at South Carolina the year before. I was like, man, don't let that guy come in this conference, man. He's going to come in here and tear things up. And I'm with you, man. He's kind of been a disappointment. I kind of wish that they would have just kept Dan Mullen over there, because he's fun to hate on. The guy says stuff even today that's just like, are you serious right now? But yeah, we'll see, man. I think college football is actually better when Florida's good.
Unfortunately, it's hard to say that.
I have to say that because it's the truth, And
they're a big brand.
Yeah, I've got some friends, some really really close friends. I love them to death. But man, they're Gator fans, and sometimes I can't even look at their outfits they're wearing. It's like, golly, killing my eyes here. But I'm with you. They have been disappointing under Napier, and hopefully, for them they'll get a turnaround. So go ahead.
All right, jumping ahead to our top 12, we'll try and move this a little faster than everything else. But we kind of took it in two different directions. I tried to go with what I think the playoff is going to look like at the end of the season next year. I think you just did your top 12 teams, so it's going to be a little bit different there. Not saying that I think these is any particular order, it's just a few of the teams that I got there, because the order may change depending on, if you have a top 12 or, how the playoff works, because you'll have your top 4 teams or conference champs and all that. So I had it kind of broken down by locks. There's a good chance and then, some hopefuls. So there were really only 4 teams that I had that I think are a lock to make the playoff. That is Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas. If you tell me they don't make it, I think something went catastrophically wrong.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else in the country that I would believe right now that will make it no matter what. Those 4 teams I think will make it no matter what. So I've got Georgia and Oregon 1 and 2 right now. I do think Oregon's going to be the better team in the Big Ten. I know that may be crazy. Sorry, Ohio State fans. Prove me wrong. Show me that Will Howard can play good quarterback. We'll see. Or maybe Aaron Nolan comes in there and starts, or
Julian Sam.
I'm about to say, new guy you just stole from Alabama. Maybe they come in and start, but they're getting a bunch of talent in the portal. I know that for a fact. I've experienced Caleb Downs. I know what he is, but I think Dan Lanning's building a monster at Oregon, and I think they're probably gonna win the Big Ten. Again, this is all subject to change. We're talking about this in February. August is a long way away.
Yep.
So my 1 and 2 were Georgia and Oregon. I had Texas at 5 and Ohio State at 6. Again, just because if they don't win their conference, they can't be a top 4 seed. 3 seed I had Florida State. I was kind of down on Florida State last year just because I was not sure about Mike Norvell. I think he's kind of proven some things to me, so I think they're going to win the ACC and make that 3rd seed. As far as where they're ranked, I don't know, but I put them in that good chance category. I think they've got a really, really good chance. They're bringing in a bunch of good guys in the portal. If you look at it, it's basically Tuscaloosa South. They got, I think, 5 or 6 good players from Alabama coming in. And DJ, man, he's going to have something to say when they play Clemson. That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, against K Clubbing, yeah. It's gonna be
and it's going to be it's going to be in Tallahassee too. So
yep, it is.
Man,
yep.
It's going to be bumping down there. The 4 seed, this was the toughest one I had because I envisioned this being the Big 12 champ. Because I'm just assuming that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to give the Pac-2 the Notre Dame treatment and say, hey, you don't have a conference. That's what I'm assuming here. So I think this 4 seed is going to go to the Big 12 champ. And right now I have no clue who's going to win that conference. I think it's going to be the most entertaining conference to watch probably in a long, long time. I think you have probably 7 teams that are like, hey, we can give it a shot. So just going based off recent success and how much I trust the coach, I picked Kansas State to win it in that 4 seed. Again, it could be probably one of about 6 or 7 teams. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if Colorado wins it. Yeah, I'm giving them a little bit of love already, so we'll see. And again, I put Kansas State in that really good chance there category. So 1 through 6, I got Georgia, Oregon, Florida State, Kansas State, Texas, Ohio State. And then these last few weren't in any particular order. I just think they're probably some of the most likely teams to make it. I got Ole Miss. I was really down on them all this year too. I know. But they're putting together a lot of good stuff in the portal. And I know that doesn't always mean anything, but it doesn't mean nothing. So I'll give them a little bit of love right now. I'm going to be high on Notre Dame next year, as of right now. I think Mizzou's going to look good again. And I don't think Michigan's going to fall off a cliff. I think they're still going to be good enough to make the top 10. And again, how the playoff works next year is you're going to have 6 conference champs are going to make it guaranteed. So given how the Pac no longer exists, you're likely going to have 2 Group of 5 conference champions make it. And those 2 Group of 5 conference champs I got are probably Tulane and Boise State right now. That's what I'm looking at. And I think it's going to be wild because we're looking at 4, in my opinion, 4, probably maybe 5 SEC teams making the 12-team playoff, which is kind of the opposite of what they wanted to happen, but I think that's very, very likely to happen.
Well, that's very interesting, and we had the same top 4: Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, and Texas. Of course, Oregon. Well, there's 2 conferences represented between those two. Those four teams there. So obviously, you can't have those 4 can't have the byes. So what I had was Georgia winning their conference, getting the first round bye. Oregon winning their conference, getting the first round bye. And then outside the top 4, I had Clemson at 5, winning the conference. I had Utah at 7, winning the Big 12. Oklahoma coming in at 6. Then I have Florida State at 8, Penn State at 9, Notre Dame at 10, Ole Miss at 11, Missouri at 12. And just to I just flew through those things pretty quick there, but to kind of go through just quickly on why I think this. So Georgia, obviously, the roster they have is probably going to be the best roster in college football. You go back and look at all the departures from Alabama. You take the recruiting class and you take what's coming back from those recruiting classes over the last 2 or 3 years, what's gone, what Georgia has coming back. I think they got the best. They're going to have the best roster in college football. I think Ohio State is actually probably their second best roster in college football with the new additions they have. However, you look at that and go, well, you can't have. You get 2 5-stars at quarterback, or you got a highly rated 5-star and a highly rated 4-star there, Julian Sand and Aaron Owen, and only one of those guys can play, and maybe neither one can play. Who knows? So that roster may be a little bit tainted as far as what they're going to actually produce on the field. But I think, like you said before, Dan Lanning is building a monster up there in the Northwest with Oregon. I think Oregon's going to. I think they're just going to be too good on both sides of the football. I think Texas is going to have a lot of stuff coming back. A lot of guys coming back. You got Quinn Ewers coming back, and then they got some additions over there. Isaiah Bond just left Alabama there. They're losing A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, but they're putting Isaiah Bond out there. That's man, that guy's good too.
I think they're picking up. I think
and,
his name's Trey Moore from
yeah.
UTSA. Good pass rusher there too.
Right, and I think that they have proven that you can lose Bijan Robinson and stick somebody else in there, Brooks, and still be effective. Brooks is going to be, I don't know if he's going to repair the knee or if he's gone or what, but I mean, I think they're just going to be a plug and play kind of guy, But they're going to have a great running attack over there. I think that offensive line is still going to be really, really good. I think Clemson is going to win their conference. I think that Klubnik is going to do good this year. Second year with the offensive coordinator, and Cam Rising coming back for Utah. I think that might be huge for them, but you don't ever know what you're going to have if he goes back down again.
That's going to be the key for Utah. If Cam
Yeah.
Rising stays healthy, they could make a push for the playoff. If he goes down, they might lose 6 games.
All right, guys, we're at the end of the show. Quick hour. Man, I'll tell you what, it's really
It was
fast.
too fast.
But you have to listen to the XL Sports Network College Drive at 5, brought to you by the Steakhouse Restaurant in Hawkinsville. Hopefully we'll see you guys next Thursday for Ken on the Boards. For Will sitting here beside me, this is Chuck Ferguson. You guys have a great week.